Director Matthew Vaughn is making the rounds promoting his upcoming action spy film, Argyle, and he's talking about a lot of different things. We've already seen him kind of talk about why he left X-Men The Last Stand, but he's also talking about Star Wars. In a recent interview, he explained where Disney went wrong with Star Wars, and he actually says a full reboot would excite him. Let's get into this here. If you aren't familiar with Matthew Vaughn, he is the director of X-Men First Class, which is arguably the best X-Men movie out there. Maybe X2 is probably a little bit better than it. It's hard to tell. I go both ways on that. You also have he also directed Kingsman. He directed Kick-Ass. He directed Layer Cake. All very good, excellent films. So if you weren't familiar with him, you might know some of the things he's created. He recently spoke with Josh Horowitz while promoting his upcoming Argyle film, and he was asked, would you ever do Star Wars? Would that be tough to say no to? This is how Vaughn responded. He said, yeah, not now, not so much. Horowitz then interjected, it's been tainted a little bit. Vaughn kind of deflected on that. He says, it's not been tainted, and I'm not going to go there. I would say for me, doing a Star Wars movie is to play with the characters that I loved. So if they said to me, we'll reboot, do you want to reboot Star Wars and actually have Luke Skywalker, Solo, and Vader, and you do your version of it? Everyone would say you're an idiot to try, but that would excite me. So he wants to do a complete reboot of Star Wars. Says that excites him. I actually think that's an absolutely awful idea. I'm one of those people that would say you're an idiot to try. I definitely agree. There's nothing wrong with those films. I think I've talked about this before. Script Doctor has said this many times. You don't reboot films that were massive successes. You reboot films that have great concepts that were not executed well, and those are the films that you should reboot. Star Wars does not fit into that category. Nevertheless, when Horowitz asserted Vaughn has a death wish, Vaughn countered, but that's fun. Why not? Bond? Do you mind Bond? You asked me who's going to play the next Wolverine. Why are these characters so hallowed that from 77 you can't redo it for a new audience? And that's the story. So he's actually talking a little bit different there. I guess they kind of rebooted Bond with Casino Royale and things like that. But for the most part, you're usually getting new Bond stories, different Bond stories. As far as recasting a different person to play Wolverine, that's not the same as rebooting and retelling the original Star Wars story. That's just finding a new actor to play the character in what you would hope would be new stories about Wolverine. So I think those are a little bit different there. And Horowitz should have pushed back on that because they are indeed different. And he kind of just accepted what Vaughn was saying there. But he goes on and says, why are these characters so held that from 77 you can't redo it for a new audience? And that's the story. From there, he actually detailed where Disney went wrong with Star Wars. He says Star Wars is the Skywalker family, and that's where I think they've gone wrong because they forgot that. They've done brilliantly in the TV. Questionable. I wonder if he he might have saw maybe the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian where people were actually on board with it, even though there was lots of problems with those 2 first seasons, which I've documented on this channel. But from there, it's been absolutely atrocious. Obi-Wan, terrible. Book of Boba Fett, terrible. Mando season 3, awful. Ahsoka, just boring. Andor, I actually haven't seen that one, so I can't really comment on it, but everything I've seen from people is it's really slow, takes a long time to get into, and it's a slog fest. But then there are people who are like, it's really good, like a really good kind of drama. But I haven't seen it, so I really can't comment on it. But anyways, he goes on and says, they done brilliantly in the TV, but it needs an epic new film, and that's what I would do. I would go, right? Everyone's going to go batshit crazy, but let's bring it on, because if you want a new generation, make the movie for them. The old generation can hopefully make it well enough that they go, okay, I'm enjoying it. So he wants to do the reboot. That's what he's saying here. I just don't think you need to do the reboot. I wasn't even alive when the first 3 films hit theaters, but I am a diehard original trilogy fan. I absolutely love those movies. They were passed on to me by family members that introduced Star Wars to me, and I've loved them ever since. So I don't think you don't need to quote unquote create the new film for the new generation. It's already there. Star Wars is a timeless story. It doesn't need to be retold for a new generation. I plan on introducing my children to the original trilogy, and they won't need to be watching a reboot or anything like that. But let's talk a little bit about more about what he's saying here. So, ironically, the Walt Disney Company, I think, attempted to actually do something similar with what he's kind of suggesting here with The Force Awakens. While not doing a hard reboot, obviously they didn't. You didn't get a young Luke Skywalker, a young Han Solo, or a young Princess Leia, or Darth Vader. The company did do a soft reboot in an attempt to garner a new generation of fans. They replaced Luke Skywalker with Rey. They replaced Han Solo with Finn and Poe Dameron, and they replaced Princess Leia and Darth Vader with Rey and Kylo Ren. They even replaced R2-D2 with BB-8. Boba Fett was replaced with I can't even remember that character's name anymore. It's so forgettable. It's the black stormtrooper in the black stormtrooper armor, played by the Game of Thrones actress. It's escaping me what the name of that character is. But they tried to replace Boba Fett with that character. So it was literally all derivative. It was a complete soft reboot. And then as for the idea that the Star Wars films are about the Skywalker family, creator George Lucas agrees. And I think probably Matthew Vaughn has seen some of the interviews with George Lucas. Back in 2015, Lucas was talking with Charlie Rose. He said, now there were two things that got abused with Star Wars and are still being abused. One, when Star Wars came out, everybody said, oh, it's a silly movie. It's just a bunch of space battles and stuff. It's not real. There's nothing behind it. I said, well, there is stuff behind it. It's not just a space battle. There's more to it than that. It's much more complicated than that. But nobody would listen. So they just said, well, it's simple and we like the spaceships. We like that. We like the stuff. So they said, fine. So the spaceships and that part of the space fantasy, whatever, got terribly abused. And of course, everybody went out and made spaceship movies, and they were all horrible, and they all lost tons of money. And you say, well, there's more to it than that. You can't just go out and do spaceships. Later in the interview, he kind of elaborated on that point. He was specifically discussing The Force Awakens as well. And he said, one of the issues was the first three movies had all kinds of issues, according to Disney, had those issues. And I think Lucas has said that he has issues with them. I disagree. He probably shouldn't have been tinkering with them. I really hate that. I hated when he injected that Jabba the Hutt scene in Tatooine. It was awful with Han stepping over him. It's terrible. Take it out. They looked at the stories and they said, we want to make something for the fans. So I said, all I wanted to do was tell a story of what happened. It started here and went there. That's all about generations. And it's about, the issues of fathers and sons and grandfathers. It's a family soap opera. I mean, ultimately, he then elaborated, we call it space opera, but people don't realize it's a soap opera and it's all about family problems and that kind of stuff. It's not about spaceships. So when Vaughn is saying it's about the Skywalkers, Lucas had literally said that in 2015. It was indeed about the Skywalkers, fathers and sons and grandfathers. Clearly, you probably would have got a third generation character. They tried to do that with Kylo Ren with that, and it just didn't fall. It just fell apart. So I think Vaughn's idea about completely rebooting the series is a hard sell, and it is stupid. It's just dumb. You already have the original trilogy. It was done really well. But there might be an opportunity to continue to explore the lives of Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia following the events of Return of the Jedi. And I think this maybe is what Vaughn might have been hinting at while kind of not saying, but while saying reboot. Because remember, he did talk about how he wanted to recast James Bond, recast Wolverine. But yes, I think you could recast Luke Skywalker and tell stories of Luke Skywalker post Return of the Jedi. If the Walt Disney Company was interested in continuing with George's vision of exploring the family dynamics of the Skywalkers, Vaughn could easily draw from the numerous expanded universe novels and comic books that feature Mara Jade, Ben Skywalker, Cole Skywalker, Cade Skywalker, Jaina Solo, Jason Solo, and others. So you can explore more of the Skywalker family that was actually introduced in this expanded universe. You could tell stories of Luke Skywalker post Return of the Jedi. You could tell stories of Han Solo post Return of the Jedi. You could tell stories of Princess Leia post Return of the Jedi. But the biggest roadblock with this, of course, is the Walt Disney's pride and feminist agenda. They are sticking to their sequel trilogies. They will not admit that they're absolutely awful, that they have turned so many people off, and they have absolutely ruined the Star Wars brand. But in order for them to actually make changes and revive the Star Wars brand, they have to admit that that was a mistake. They need to decanonize the sequel trilogy. They need to decanonize everything that they've pretty much done. Get rid of the High Republic. Get rid of the Mandalorian. Get rid of Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's all gone. And we've seen them do this before. It's possible to do this. They did this with the expanded universe, where they said that was no longer canon. It is now going to be Legends, and we're going to tell our new stuff. Well, they need to do that with their stuff. Admit that they were wrong. Bring someone in with an actual vision on what they can do post Return of the Jedi with Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia, and start from there. Start right after Return of the Jedi. There's lots of things that you can do, because we know that the Empire had been broken up into regional warlords. So yes, the Emperor was destroyed. Darth Sidious was destroyed by Anakin Skywalker. And Luke Skywalker, he was destroyed, but you still have Imperial warlords that the Rebel Alliance will have to combat against. And you can even have some really interesting palace intrigue going on, because these because now there's no one really holding these warlords together. They might be competing against each other, and that makes it easier for the Rebel Alliance to play off of each other and things like that. And it could be actually really, really interesting. And then obviously you would have that dynamic with the family stuff where you're kind of Luke is also, while he's trying to like take out the rest of the Empire, he's starting to rebuild his Jedi Order. You have new family members coming in that want to join, and you have like Jason and Jaden. You can do stories like that too. And you have Mara Jade. You can have his own son. So there's lots of potential opportunities that they can do, that they should do, that would probably sell like hotcakes and rejuvenate the Star Wars franchise. But Disney has to admit that they messed up first. But enough of me on my pedestal here. What do you think of Matthew Vaughn's idea about rebooting Star Wars? Do you think it is a good idea? And what do you make of his assessment about Disney went wrong by not understanding that the sequel trilogy or the actual Star Wars story is about the Skywalkers? Let me know in the comments below.
Subscribe for more.